The Broken Blueprint, Part 3, Events in 1913. Seeking the C rating. It was only because our leaders later begged for admission that Caldwell would eventually give Loma Linda a C rating. But they were not to receive even that lowest rating for another 2 years. There is no historical record of any kind that the accrediting agencies wanted to accredit our institutions. We pushed and pushed to get the door open, and they kept raising their standards as they always do in order to shut it again. That is why worldly accrediting agencies exist, to devise requirements to limit the number of institutions turning out graduates. As a result, there is a reduced number of training centers, so each can charge higher tuition and pay higher salaries to their administrators and teachers. Because there are a reduced number of graduates, those who graduate can charge more for their services because they have a degree. Christ stated his ways: freely ye have received, freely give. Matthew 10, verse 8. The way of the world is radically different. Get as much money out of the customer and the employer as you can. In order to do this, the educational world uses accrediting agencies and degrees, while workers use professional associations and labor unions. By accepting that lowest AMA rating, we would publicly admit our lack of confidence in the superior medical missionary program God had already given our people. The question may be asked, are we to have no union whatever with the world? The word of the Lord is to be our guide. Any connection with infidels and unbelievers which would identify us with them is forbidden by the word. We are to come out from them and be separate. In no case are we to link ourselves with them in their plans or work. But we are not to live reclusive lives. We are to do worldlings all the good we possibly can. Fundamentals of Christian Education, page 482. Daniels recognized his mistake. On October 1913, while chasing after a C rating from the AMA, Elder Daniels openly admitted that they had made a terrible blunder. Here is the official minutes of the board meeting. Elder Daniels thought that possibly we had made a mistake in going ahead and establishing a full, regular AMA-approved medical school when we were conducting a medical missionary school successfully. He went on to say, we are in a situation that we must get out of, but we must get out right. Minutes of the CME Board, October 22, 1913, page 682. The only way they could get out was by terminating their pursuit of AMA practices. As you have discovered, the whole situation is comparable to a man dropping seeds on the ground, gradually leading a dove into a trap. Daniels could not get out by continuing to do what the AMA told him to do. The AMA advocated a training program that indoctrinated the students in giving poisonous drugs to patients as the remedy for their many ills. But the giving of poisonous compounds is wrong and should not have been copied by us. Not one of the schools of medicine so highly lauded in the world is approved in the courts above, nor do they bear the heavenly superscription and endorsement. I have spoken plainly in regard to your feelings concerning the methods of practice. The use of drugs has resulted in far more harm than good, and should our physicians who claim to believe the truth almost entirely dispense with medicine and faithfully practice along the lines of hygiene using nature's remedies, far greater success would attend their efforts. Brethren in the medical profession, I entreat you to think candidly and put away childish things. The Lord is not pleased with your attitude toward those who have graduated in what you call inferior schools. He does not approve of the spirit that actuates you. God will judge us by what we ought to have been, what we ought to have done had we been obedient children. We cannot escape the consequences of our omissions and mistakes, even though we cannot see them or estimate their results. E.G.W., quoted in J.H.N. Tyndall's Spirit of Prophecy compilation, Our Medical Setup and the Drug Question, pages 54 to 55. It should be mentioned here that movements had earlier been set in motion in the world, which would force us to either fight our way through to recognition on the basis of our unique, superior method of treatment, as the chiropractors and osteopaths are doing, or submit fully to AMA accreditation requirements. In 1908, Dr. Abraham Flexner was requested by Organized Medicine and the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching to conduct an investigation of American medical education. He accepted the assignment and visited over 150 institutions. His report focused public opinion on the tragic deficiencies of the majority of the schools. As the result of his survey, the worst ones were closed, and a constructive program of improvement was made in those that survived. Merlin Neff, For God and the CME, page 163. The solution was simple enough. Either push through for US recognition as the chiropractors and osteopaths had done, or focus on what Ellen White told us to do. Prepare medical missionaries at Loma Linda who could primarily become overseas missionaries. Are you aware that, even today, the situation has not changed in third world nations? With no degrees or even formal schooling of any kind, you can go to any of them and treat the sick. And the government will not merely tolerate you, it will welcome your efforts. For the great majority of sicknesses, our healing system is far superior to that offered by the world. Instead of weakening the body with poisonous compounds, we strengthen it through the use of natural remedies, and we point the sick to Christ for healing of the soul. The 1913 crisis. The ongoing effort to have the school approved by the world appeared to be an effort of trying to fill a bottomless hole with money. By 1913, a vast amount had already been spent, with not even the lowest rating to show for it. By the next year, according to Neff, over $400,000 would have been spent. For God and CME, page 175. Yet the end was not in sight. The financial burden continued to press heavily and was the occasion for serious misgiving on the part of many whose responsibilities were such that they must make important decisions. At length in 1913, when the Board of Trustees realistically faced a further necessary enlargement of the faculty and the addition of expensive buildings and equipment in order to satisfy accreditation requirements, a crisis was reached. A glance at the minutes of the meeting of the trustees of the College of Medical Evangelists held in Tacoma Park, Washington, D.C. in October 1913 in connection with the Autumn Council of the General Conference Committee reveals a feeling of genuine dismay at the seemingly endless streams of money needed for the building program. Emergencies innumerable had been met by the borrowing of more money, and the indebtedness of the institution had been mounting yearly. Besides this, increasing requirements from the American Medical Association were bringing added perplexities. D.E. Robinson, Story of Our Health Message, page 392. Some were again questioning seriously the aim of furnishing a complete course for physicians. Perhaps, said another, we made a mistake in going ahead and establishing a full medical school when we were conducting a medical missionary school successfully. D.E. Robinson, Story of Our Health Message, page 392. The primary source for the above statements is the minutes of the Board of Trustees of the College of Medical Evangelists, October 21 to 27, 1913. According to those minutes, the entire project hung in the balance for several days, and church leaders almost decided to stop trying to achieve recognition and return to the training of medical missionaries. Oh, how changed the entire future course of the Adventist higher education would have been if they had made that decision.